Limits of the Flesh, Chapter 14, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. Finally, now was the fun activity to be had with capturing my foes. Sundering those fallen's minds and turning their forms into something oh so much better than they originally were. In service of me and my own. As Rias and Akeno led me to a side room that looked to be the old school building nurse's room, I couldn't help but feel a lightness fill my frame as though I was Light Yagami about to do his good work. I felt not nervous energy at my peers seeing my work, but I only had confidence filling my heart. So is this little transformation you put them through, going to be painful or gory to watch? Akeno excitedly asked me, and I firmly shook my head. Oh, dear heavens no. What I am doing may be harsh, but it's an alternative to true death and I see no value in being cruel to them as they will in the end be utterly loyal to me, and harming or bringing discomfort to such a loyal tool accomplishes nothing. I said, taking a cue from the SCP Foundation in how they treated their tenants. I was going to treat my creations at worst in their prescribed manner. Be cold, not cruel. But more than likely I will treat them with all the due love and care that I would have for my dog back home in my previous life. And I loved my dog more than I cared for any of my friends and even some of my family. You are still going to make me knight, right? Rias excitedly asked me, and I nodded before humming as a scary thought crossed my mind. Rias, how strong do you want your new knight to be? I asked bluntly, and Rias stopped me, literally grabbing me gently by the shoulders, and her darker ocean blue eyes met my lighter sky blue ones as she spoke very clearly. I want them to be the strongest, they can be no matter what. If it's something awkward or politically sensitive, I can deal with it with some forewarning. But I frankly need strong peerage members if I want to stand above my peers and not be pulled into other schemes. I nodded before I groaned as I finally pulled Rias and Akeno into the room hosting the bound forms of Calawarner and Rainier who were strapped to the hospital beds. Alright, Rias, here is my plan for Calawarner and how she may very well become an ace for your peerage, I said as I patted the blue-haired beauty's head, and her eyes widened fearfully as I very clearly explained how I was going to rip out her fallen angel heritage so she could easily be reincarnated as a human, and then once turned I was going to graft Rias's power of destruction into her form but mutated so it wasn't as obvious. Of course, hearing my frankly completely insane idea, even though Rias clearly looked uncomfortable at the thought of a once enemy getting a copy of her bloodline. Rias, I swear on my very life that the people I create will be loyal to me and in turn you that join your peerage. Here, let me prove it. I said, holding a hand out to the Gremorieris. Take my hand and I will prove that I can copy your bloodline, and from that knowledge that I am capable of such, know that breaking the mind of a two-wings garbage is most assuredly not out of my capabilities. Rias, having another wielder of the power of destruction will make winning your raiding game all but a surety, but the Bale clan, should they learn of it, will be very unhappy, to say the least, Akeno advised, giving the pros and cons of the situation. Rias looked from Akeno to me and down to my hand before finally looking down to Calawarner below us, who was frantically struggling in her bound and sealed form. And then Rias looked back to up me, biting her lip before she sighed, and she placed her soft hand within my outstretched one. Very well, my cute peerage member. I will extend my trust to you, Rias said solemnly, and then with our hold for a minute tightening I broke apart from her and held up the hand that held her own. Behold, the Bale clan's power of destruction, I said as upon my open palm had a ball of the Bale clan's potent conceptual destruction ability. Now, Calawarner, presto, you're blonde, I said as I placed my hand atop Calawarner's bare stomach, and then I began sculpting Calawarner's entire body, first of all wiping her mind, and then several large cracking noises rang out as the hidden enhanced bones of the fallen began breaking down, and finally as Calawarner grew out long almost pale blonde hair and her own skin tone lightening greatly, I stepped away. They try to reincarnate her, I said as Rias took in the even more voluptuous form of Calawarner. Rias's face began twitching before she sent me a thumbs up. Alright Jake, I see you are a man of culture. Lancer, Artoria Alter. If I didn't have a contract on my virginity, I may force you into my bed, haha. Rias hysterically laughed in excessive happiness as she began molesting my flesh-crafted piece of art, while Rainier screamed just as hysterically in complete fear. Then as Rias happily stuck in her night piece into Artoria, I made sure to suppress her supernatural abilities to oblivion so the piece actually could take root, and as the transformation turned her from a human into a devil, I then allowed the Bale clan's power of destruction to come to life, coating the newborn devil in its caustic energies and burn its way out of its bindings. It's alive. I crowed, playing it up as Akeno stood off to the side, face palming as the nude form of Artoria alter blankly sat up and took in Rias and me. And with myself having more experience, I was able to make sure to keep some of her more social memories, so she was able to speak. Artoria looked straight at me with her light blonde hogue flickering in the air as she spoke softly with a voice that was gentle velvet across my ears. Are you to be my master? Rias, being a complete weeb, loudly keened in the background, torn between yelling about how this had fulfilled her dreams and complete jealousy that it was aimed at me. No, Artoria, your master is Rias Gremory here, I said, taking Rias's hand and pulling her in front of me so Artoria's piercing golden eyes locked onto Rias, who almost staggered under the weight of the look, and then Artoria almost regally sat up from the bed and then bowed to Rias. In that case, Rias Gremory, my hands shall be yours in all things, Artoria said before she looked over to the strapped-down form of Rainier. Master, is she an enemy? She asked in black with purple highlights. Power of destruction filled her hand as she looked at the clearly a prisoner form of Rainier with none of the care or seemingly any sign that they were once comrades. No, she is to be your sister in time, Rias said kind of awkwardly, but then looked to me, raising an eyebrow, and waved to the struggling form of Rainier in a clear, get-to-work motion. Snickering to Akeno's grumbling about all the nonsense happening, I leaned over Rainier, and then, like a hand of God, my hand gently fell to her cheek, and as a tear fell from her eye, the sadistic fallen angel Rainier mentally died as I wiped her mind, with her eyes even losing their light with the personality death. That's so hot, ah! Akeno muttered, moaning at the cruel sight, and I couldn't help myself from throwing an incredible look at her. Right. Well, apparently, making an Akeno clone is a terrible idea, as a certain someone refuses to have a sister, so I need to use a backup idea, I said, making a pointed look to Rainier, with her only sending me a glare through her half-lidded eyes. For a moment I thought about making her into a death from Akane kill, but I already had a creation focusing on ice creation in Monet who would legit cry at the thought of being replaced, and then I had an interesting thought, as I had already picked up the fallen angle template from the girls I touched, and then I realized Rias should probably keep her pieces for future peerage members like Zenobia and Rossweiss, so there was no need to turn her into a devil, at least in my mind. Rias, I am going to take this one as my own from all this. I will make it so she can be registered as a familiar, which cannot be done if she is a devil. Hearing my idea, she nodded and then gasped. I made what was once Rainier's long black hair turn purple, and her form grew a bit more muscle tone, with her breasts and other curves growing slightly more voluptuous to compensate. Then, just as I had copied over Akeno's holy lightning, I poured that into my masterpiece, so that as my creation rose to its feet steadily, as its eyes snapped open, they glowed with a purple light, with dangerous holy lightning snapping around her. Master, what is to be my name? I kneeled down as I took in the form of Ei, better known as the Raiden Shogun from Genshin Impact. I felt rather exhausted from giving her such a powerful magical core and ingraining her holy lightning into her very being, to the point that I had no doubt she would be able to one day embody it, like Surzex could embody his power of destruction and become an avatar of it. Still, even with my exhaustion, I held on to Ei's soft cheeks and looked into her glowing eyes. Your name is to be Ei, or Raiden in front of strangers. Then I began my little mental programming. You are my blade in the dark, and my shield during the day. You will be my sharpest sword, and I will treasure you for that, I said honestly, and I felt Ei's mind whirling as she internalized the info as a fact of life. As though someone said, oh hey look, the sky is blue today. Of course, the sky was blue, just as she would mercilessly cut down my foes with the same surety that the next day the sky would be blue. I am Ei. Master, do you need to do something else today? She asked softly as her head cocked to the side in a questioning manner, and as I stood back up straight, I shook my head and yawned, tired after the school day and all its events afterward, to say nothing of making powerful future tools.